Hello, welcome back. This week we are talking about the hyoid bone. Now, unlike most of the bones in the body, it doesn't have a joint in the same way that the other bones do. So where is it? It's right up here, right up underneath the jaw, on the neck. And the reason it is there is for one simple reason, is that you can't swallow and breathe at the same time, but also you need to be able to be mobile through your neck and head. And if you're right now trying to swallow and breathe at the same time, I take no responsibility for whatever is coming out of your nose. And if you're drinking a cup of tea, then you've only got yourself to blame. But the hyoid is one of these structures that allows us to be in a space where we can turn our neck and our head and be able to breathe and swallow, eat at the same time. And the reason being is because the trachea, which is another very interesting subject, trachea and the esophagus, which is pinned together and held very firmly in place as a sort of a single double-holed unit, don't attach themselves to the spine, the cervical spine, because if they did, then essentially what would happen is every time you turned your neck, then you'd get this twisting, this torsion. And so as you were turning your neck and you breathed or tried to swallow, then it would just have a twist of the hole and it would close up and nothing would go down. So instead, what needs to happen is the trachea and the esophagus need to float around. They need to float around in order to be able to keep those tubes that are going from the mouth all the way down through the stomach to the lungs and are open. And that's what the hyoid does. So the hyoid has a bunch of muscles that come sort of from the sternum up to the hyoid, and then from the and other bits and pieces up from the hyoid to the inside of the mouth. And they sort of overlap. They're very thin and they overlap. Now on the outside of that, you've got this sternocleidomastoid, and that sternocleidomastoid sort of wraps around and sits across pretty much the top of a lot of the hyoids. Now the hyoids below, the hyoid muscles below the hyoid are called infrahyoid. And where's my other skull gone? And the muscles above the hyoid are called the suprahyoid. So the infrahyoid muscles come down, as I said, from the hyoid and come down to the sternum, or the other way around, go up from the sternum to the hyoid. So you've got sternohyoid, and then you've got sternothyroid, thyrohyoid, and all these little muscles that sort of overlap and reach their way up through the cricothyroid and all these other little structures that allow for this movement to take place, but also allow for flexibility through the neck and the head. From the hyoid upwards, they go up sort of to form mostly, for the most part, the inside of the mouth. So you've therefore got things like the mylohyoid, the geniohyoid, and the stylohyoid. These are all the other structures. But there's two really cool ones that I wanted to talk about. Firstly, back on the infrahyoid structures, there's a muscle that comes from the hyoid and it drops down and it sort of curves through a little bit of connective tissue and heads back to the shoulder blade. And that is called the omohyoid. And the omohyoid, as I said, is going all the way back and attaching to the front bit of the shoulder blade. So what you've now got is the scapula being attached to the hyoid, which is kind of cool, right? Now, the listed reason is that it's going to give stability and strength to the hyoid bone and help all that. But you're also going to have maybe a bit of proprioception about where you are, where your throat and your head is in relation to your shoulders. So it's something to consider when we're looking at any positions of the head in relation to the shoulder. Swallowing is a big deal, and if in any given point in time when you swallow, you have a constant feedback that's sort of where your food is, or where what you swallowed is in your throat. And if you lose track of it, if your brain loses track of it, then there's a real issue, because you've got something in there and you don't know where it is or where it's going, and so you can choke on that. And elderly people quite often have that after strokes as well. It's something called dysphagia. It's a catch-all thing for swallowing problems. So that's the omohyoid going out to the shoulder blade. And the other cool one, they're all pretty cool, but the other cool one that's suprahyoid is going from the hyoid up to the inside of the mandible, into the digastric fossa. And this is the anterior belly of the digastric. So it's sort of coming from, if you imagine the hyoid's here, and it's going up to there. And now the posterior belly of the digastric goes from the hyoid right back out to here, to the back edge of this skull, which is the mastoid process. So this joins up with a few things, and this is where it starts to get a bit, overlapped and interesting. And it's these join-ups that really intrigue me, because anatomically we look at individual muscles and we say this is what this does and this is what this does. But what happens when three structures come together? So the posterior belt of the digastric hits the mastoid. What else is on the mastoid is you've got the sternocleidomastoid, the big one that's going down from the sternum up to the mastoid and the collarbone. And then you've got the splenius capitis, big neck and head muscle, and you've got the longissimus capitis, which is part of the erector spinae group. So you've got all these structures with the digastric all blending into here. And then the sternocleidomastoid fascia, as I've dissected many times and demonstrated, is a continuous scalp fascia. It doesn't go across in one unit. It goes all the way across the top of the head, and there's other videos out there that I talk about this. So sternocleidomastoid is the sort of the overarching, the outside one, but underneath all these things, piling into giving feedback around the back of the head and the neck, are things like the digastric and tiny little structures that are then going to go down to the hyoid. So again, think about hyoid backwards, and then hyoid downwards to the shoulder blade. And so we can start to see this connectivity. And, once you follow that rabbit hole, it's quite amazing. So, and of course, opening and closing your jaw is going to be involved in that as well. So there we go. That's the hyoid, the infrahyoids and the suprahyoids. And that's kind of cool. If you have spat your tea over your keyboard while you're watching this, then I do apologize. It's not my fault. But please let me know in the comments. Please leave me a comment, like and subscribe, share, do those social media things. We have to do them. It's very, very important. And I get told off if I don't remind you at the end of every video. Anyway, thanks very much. And I will see you next time.